All right, all right, all right, gang. Barry the Gimp here. Try something new here. I'm going to do this live stream thing so I can utilize this software a little better, help me edit stuff. Now, normally I do a whole game series. I do a playthrough and all that. And um, let me turn off this. I do how to play and all that. I'm not going to do this for this game, Access Now is 1942, because I do not plan on keeping it. Not because it's a bad game. I'll get into that a little later on. So this is basically going to be like a review, I guess. First one I ever did, I think. So here are my thoughts on Access and Allies 1942, second edition. I have the Renegade version, and I'm going to start with the components because that's where I have the most problems with the game. All right. So if we look down here, we can see we had the 5 armies. Each sculpt is different. I do like that. The boats are a little tough to tell, and the rule book doesn't help you with that. It's a little bit of a concern with the game. Um, Another one is, I don't know if it'll come up here on the camera. I don't think it does, but I actually took a Sharpie and drew in some of the borders just because I couldn't tell between the borders. All right, and these setup things here, I think, are a waste. They help you out setting up the board, but then you never see them throughout the rest of the game. So there's that. I think they should have a player aid on the back of them so that each player can use it to reference the game, because there is not one in the rule book, which is one of my biggest concerns with the game. Um, Here's my feelings on Access and Ally. I like the game. I really do. I'm still exploring it. I only played it about a dozen times, 5 physically, and then on an app. So I'm not an expert by this by any means. If you would like to see an expert, I highly recommend Board Game Nations. They do an excellent rules explanation of the game, quite thorough one. And Mike, I think his name is a board game champ, the Access and Allies champ. So he knows his stuff. I'd advise you to go over there, see that. But I do think it's a good game. I haven't explored it enough. But my problem is, it is not a great game for beginner players or somebody who doesn't play this type of game. And this rule book will not help you get there. I think it came from the old version. There's quite a few different versions of these, and there's different titles. So there was a bit of confusion on that when I went to look into this to begin with. The game is great. It's got a lot of exploration to it. It does come down to a single die roll, most of the time in my experience. But I took this to my brother, brand new board gamer, who doesn't want to admit he needs reading glasses. So he had a hard time reading the board. He thought it was too big, too small, rather. I think he's out of his mind with that. This board is big enough. What I just showed is only one half of it. The other half is still full up here. Um, but he had a hard time reading the numbers and the C zones. So that's a thing for people with bad eyesight or the lighting. The lighting was a bit of an issue. Here it's nice and bright. The other room is not quite as bright, but my eyes are a little younger, I guess. But what he found is it was just too overwhelming. I had him playing the Axis with the 2 armies, and I was playing the Allies with the other 3. Um, for that reason, because for me playing solo, playing all 5 armies, it was too overwhelming. I couldn't figure out my game plan. I couldn't stick with it because I kept forgetting it by the time I go through all the 5 armies. So I brought him along to try and help me out with that, but it was too overwhelming for him, even with the 2 armies. Just looking over the whole thing, he couldn't focus on one strategy or whatever. Um, So that's a negative with newer players or players who aren't used to this type of game because in the beginning it is a lot. After you play it a few times, it becomes repetitive and second nature. What you do, like the movement with the subs and the first attack they get, also with the arties and all that, how they give you a +1 with the infantry. Once you play a few times, you get them little rules down, but in the beginning, like I said, there's no player reads anywhere. So new players are going to constantly looking through the rule book, and there's not really a great reference to where these rules are in the rule book. They have, what the individual units do at the back of the rule book with their special things, but they mention certain things up front and it goes back and forth. It's not a great rule book. There are player aids on Board Game Geek. I downloaded a couple, and I will give him the name for them. Paul Palawi, I think, is one of them, and the other one is who is it? Ranger Rob. These are two very good player aids. They go through, the different phases, the combat phase, what fires when, who does what, stuff like that. Again, I think this should have been in the rule book. I don't understand this. Like, this game's been around forever, at least the 80s, I think. So I don't understand why Renegade did this. If they're trying to introduce it to new players, why wouldn't they go through this? Like, have enough player aids for beginning players to learn the game. Have a rule book that people new to rule books can understand. Have ships differentiated so you could tell the difference between the destroyers and the cruisers, or even sometimes with the transports. As you play the game, you learn these things and figure them out. But player aid would be nice for that, and a little better description on the boats other than that side view that you have in the rule book, which doesn't really help when you're looking down at a board constantly, not at its side. So there's misses on the components. I also think there's not enough stuff to keep track of everything. Like, when you move a plane, you got to remember how many moves they got left. The whole IPC thing, they have a marker, a track up there for the NPCs, which converge into IPCs. I don't understand why they just have another token to help you out with that, or some kind of chips or money or something. They tell you to use a pen and paper. I get price point, but they could have added that, charge a little bit more. You're already paying, I think, $70 or $80 for the game to begin with. Now, overall, like I said, I think it's a great game. I would like to explore it more. I just will not keep it because it will never get to the table in my case. May for you, may not, but in my case, it will never get to the table. I thought I might have a chance with my brother. That was shot to hell. That game took us like 5 or 6 hours, and I threw something in the third round to try and speed it up. I don't think he caught on to that, but so if I were going to play with somebody, it would be him. It's not going to get to the table, and that's one of the big things is the time sink into it. I think it said 260 minutes roughly. I don't remember. Sounds about right. I don't know. I'm sure if we play longer, you could get it down quicker. The setup alone for me, I got it down to about 40 minutes. So if you're setting up all 5 armies, the setup alone is going to take, like I said, half hour, 45 minutes. And then you got, 3, 4, 5 hours, depending on the cat and mouse that you go throughout the game. Added on to that, it's a big time sink, which normally wouldn't bother me. I can play longer games if I'm into them, but I'll never get the table to play it. So it's on the realms of like Game of Thrones and Battlestar Galactica. They just don't get to the table. But I do enjoy it. I would like to explore it. I'm still in that exploratory phase. I do like the back and forth. I do like the different strategies, although some are apparent, and I like to build up and how each army plays differently because of the setup. I know there's another rule set, 2.5 or something for the second edition. It's the tournament setup, which changes that a little bit, so it's not the same. The setup's not quite the same every time. So if you are going to get into it, maybe look into it. But my suggestion for you is look on the internet for other opinions and resources. There's plenty out there. Board Game Geek has them, I'm sure. Like I said, Board Game Nation is a very good website for this. And this is one I would suggest you try before you buy. And if you are going to try before you buy, only play one army. Don't try and play all 5, all right? Unless you really think you can keep track of all that. So that's it. That's it for Renegades, Axis and Allies, 1942, second edition. Thanks for watching. Get gaming. Have fun. See you next time. Get you out.